107.7 Pulse FM, home of the 2019 federal election for Surrey and its neighboring cities. #Pulse Politics.
Good morning. You are listening to Pulse Politics. Today's featured debate is Port Moody, Coquitlam, with the Canadian federal election coming up on October 21st. We do have a couple of candidates joining us in studio from the Liberals and the Green Party. We were hoping that the NDP's Benita Zarillo and Conservatives Nellie Shin could join us in studio. However, they did decline our invitation. My name is Tara Lopez. We're joined by Pulse FM's news director, Kevin Diakiw. Good morning, Kevin. Now, before we get started, if we could kindly ask our candidates from the Liberals and the Greens to introduce themselves to our Pulse FM listeners and the party, of course, which they are representing. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hi, my name is Sara Badiei. I'm from the Liberal Party.
Hi, I'm Bryce Watts. I'm from the Green Party.
Welcome to both of you. It's great having you here. Beautiful little riding that you guys are representing or trying to represent. Mountainous and bordered by rivers and water, and it's just an amazing little piece of electoral boundary here. And I want to go straight to Sara Badiei with Liberals and find out, why is it that you want to run for politics in the first place? Why do you want to take that stick your head up publicly?
Right. So my family moved to Coquitlam in 2004. So we've been there for about 15 years. I've got a little one. She's almost 2. And I'm raising her in the riding. I've got parents who are aging, but they're still working because the cost of living is so high. My husband's a family physician in the riding, so healthcare is a big deal for us. And I'm an engineer, and I've dedicated pretty much my whole 12-year career to service. I've worked with organizations like Doctors Without Borders and the World Bank all around the world in disaster response and humanitarian aid contexts. I was a refugee myself when I came to Canada, so it was a really important thing for me to be able to use my skills to make a difference in people's lives. Most recently, I was working at the World Bank, and I was an energy specialist. I was designing large-scale solar energy programs for millions of people around the world, and working with the most senior levels of government on energy policy and the green energy transition. I really wanted to get involved in politics because I was seeing this divisive and toxic politics all around the world, and election after election, I just would do anything to prevent that from happening here in Canada. I mean, this is a country that gave me every single opportunity that I've ever had, and I want to make sure all of our kids have that same opportunity. So we've been out in the doorsteps for about a year, reached over 45,000 people, and it's been a great ride so far, and I'd love to be the Member of Parliament in this area.
Thank you, Sara Badiei. And I want to go to Bryce Watts with the Greens. What a great riding for you to be running in here. There's just a bunch of environmental concerns all around you. It's a good place. And why is it that you want to stick your head up and run for politics?
And that is one of the main reasons that I wanted to run. I mean, everyone knows the slogan Supernatural BC. It's a beautiful place to live, and the environment is the key component to that. I've been a lifelong environmentalist myself, taking part in tree plantings here in Surrey when I was growing up. And basically, I see a lot of things happening around the world, a lot of impacts of the climate crisis, and I want people to start taking it seriously. More and more people in Port Moody and Coquitlam are. It's the number one issue for people, and I figured it was time for me to speak up about that.
Good segue to my next question, and I'd like to ask you, so environment is a top issue for you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, poll after poll that we've seen from people talking on their doorsteps, meeting people in the streets, environment is top issue for everyone.
Anything specific about that issue that's...
Basically trying to avert the climate crisis that we're about to be getting into more seriously. And people are wanting some action by the government and to figure out what they can do as individuals, because a lot of times people have said to me, I'm just one person, what can I do to make a difference? And that's the role of the government, is to show people what they can do and also lead and show that the federal government is taking that role.
Thank you very much. Sara, would you agree with that? Is that
yes, absolutely. And the thing that I'm really happy about is that the Liberal Party recognized this and over the last 4 years has put in some solid groundwork already. Massive investments in public transit, for example. We've had about $4 billion just just in the Lower Mainland in the last 4 years. Electric vehicle subsidies, $5,000 worth, billions of dollars for green infrastructure projects directly to municipalities. We started off in 2015 with 1% of our waterways protected. Right now we're at 14%, and we've got a target of 25% by 2025. So there's a lot that's been done and some really big dreams on the platform for the environment. So it makes it easy for me because that's something that I really care about. And we went to the climate march with my daughter, and someday I'll show her that, and I'll say, we were with it from the very beginning. And I've got over a decade of experience in this area already, so it's something I really feel passionate about.
Yeah, thank you. A lot's been done, but I'm guessing that you would also say there's more to do.
There's so much more to do. Yeah, okay. So much more to do.
Thank you, both of you, and over to Tara.
You are listening to Pulse Politics. The Canadian federal election is coming up on October 21st, and today's feature debate is Port Moody, Coquitlam. Kevin Diakiw.
Going to the wheel.
Are you ready to spin that wheel of issues? Let's give it a whirl. Our first topic of discussion is housing.
And we'll go to Bryce Watts on this. Housing. How can we improve the availability of housing and the affordability of it?
Well, this is definitely an issue close to my heart. I'm a renter myself, and I know that in the next decade, most likely, I probably have very little chance of being a homeowner. So what the Green Party is trying to do is reignite the federal co-op program. Co-op rentals are a cost-effective way for people to get into at least affordable rental housing. It's something that was cut by previous governments, and it's something that we're wanting to reignite so that we can actually go back to being into the rental markets as the federal government.
And how would you go about doing that? Would it be under the same structure that was on before, or would it be
the structure before, it worked. I know people that are in Vancouver that are in co-ops. It's cost-effective. It's a program that does work. It's just something where the funding was cut.
Okay. And do you have anything in the plan for regards to affordability for first-time home buyers?
First-time home buyers, definitely we're trying to do, there is the stress test that the current government has put into place. Yeah. It is working, but we need to do a little bit more to help people, especially first-time home buyers who are younger, just out of university. I have UBC students emailing me saying, I would love to live in Vancouver. Is that something that's ever going to be possible for me? At the moment, as a student just coming into university, I have to be realistic with them and say, it's probably not in the cards right now, but with increased programming to support first-time home buyers. But it comes down to affordability of everything in life. Vancouver, the whole Metro Vancouver is very expensive. Transit, if you want a car, gas is incredibly expensive. So taking public transit is a great option. But even for me to come here today, it was going to take 2.5 hours from Port Moody to get to the studio. Yeah. That's not feasible for people to be able to do on a day-to-day basis, back and forth. So if we can increase transit so people can get out of their cars and save money on gas, save money on insurance, that's also a way that affordability can be helped.
Thank you very much, Bryce Watts and Sara Badiei. Over to you. Housing, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, similar to Bryce, I moved to the riding in 2004, and I remember when I graduated from UBC in 2007, I just dreamed about owning a place, so I thought I'd save up some money for a down payment, and the amount that I was saving just never quite caught up to the increase in prices, double digits year over year. So one of the problems is that the federal government has been out of the housing sector for decades. The Liberal government has come back in with a national housing strategy. It's the biggest investment in housing in over 50 years. It's a $55 billion strategy, and it's got multiple parts. There's a first-time home buyers incentive where you can get up to a 10% interest-free loan that will help you reduce your monthly mortgage payments. There are hundreds of thousands of affordable housing units that are to be built or refurbished so that people can have more access to affordable housing. There's support for rental subsidies for people who need that additional support, up to $2,500 per year for a couple 100,000 families. And in terms of homelessness, it's targeting reducing homelessness by 50% over 10 years. There's about $2.2 billion a part of the Reaching Home strategy, which is going to support directly a strategy to reduce homelessness.
Okay, thank you very much. And the $55 billion, large chunk of change here. Yes. How are we going to pay for that?
Well, so the program is a part of a bigger strategy to make sure that there's improved affordability and improved access. And in terms of paying for it, our economy is booming. We have over 1 million jobs over this last 4 years that have been created. We've got the lowest unemployment rate in Canadian history. In Q2 of 2019, our economy grew at 3.75%. That's the biggest growth in a couple of years. And we've got additional trade with additional countries, preferential access to 51 countries now. So as our economy is growing, as people are paying more income tax, as companies are paying more corporate tax, there's going to be more money coming in to be able to pay for this.
Okay, thank you. And also, this claim about reducing homelessness by 50%, that's a mammoth task. Can you tell us how you're going to do it?
Yeah, specifically by doing a grassroots approach, because in places, for example, like the downtown east side, there are already programs on the ground who are successful and who are doing a great job. So the idea is to always do grassroots from the bottom up, and we'll see who is already in the area and where we can provide that money to, just to boost them and support them, because we constantly hear that there isn't enough money coming into those different groups.
Okay. Thank you both.
You're listening to Pulse Politics. The Liberals and the Green Party are joining us today in studio from Port Moody, Coquitlam. We do have time to spin that wheel of issues yet again. Let's see where the needle falls this time. Transportation.
And we go to Sara Badiei for this first one here. Transportation, what's broken and how do we fix it?
Yeah, so transportation is really close to my heart. When I first moved to Coquitlam, I was taking 3 buses and a SkyTrain to get out to UBC. It would take me about 2 hours. Now with the Evergreen line in there, we're about halfway there, so I can jump on and at least get to the downtown area. But the Liberal Party, like I had said previously, has invested about $4 billion over the last 4 years in public transit. And as part of that, there's about $900 million allocated to the Broadway extension so that we get the SkyTrain up towards UBC. There's over $700 million allocated to get SkyTrain over to Langley. There's about $80 million for converting to all-electric bus fleets. So there's a lot of stuff that's allocated already. But on top of that, the Mayor's Council on Regional Transportation asked us for additional funding, reliable, stable funding, so that TransLink could have long-term plans so that as governments get in and out, they wouldn't be cutting their program. So we dedicated money to that as part of the platform. The Congestion Relief Fund is what it's called. And I was really happy that we did that, because I know that on St. John Street, on Clark Street, on North Road, there's a lot of traffic. We see it going by our office every single day. If there's anything we can do to get people out of cars and in comfortable, reliable, dependable, timely transit, that's the best way to go for the environment and for people's sanity.
Thank you for that. Now, the TransLink plan to build infrastructure throughout the region is stopping short in several areas. And just locally, we're looking at SkyTrain stopping in Fleetwood because we can't afford to build it to Langley. Running out of money. Is there anything you can do to help us along there?
Yeah, so this is exactly a part of the Congestion Relief Fund, which is going to continue providing stable, reliable funding, but also, as part of the broader strategy to have more infrastructure projects generally all across Canada. The government said from the very beginning that they were going to do a fair bit of work on beefing up infrastructure, because we're desperately needed and we're behind. And I think this can be a part of that plan.
Thank you very much. And over to Bryce Watts, same question, transportation. How do we fix that?
Basically, we need to go with something that is cost effective. The SkyTrains are a wonderful system to have, but they are incredibly expensive. And just because we've been using them since the 80s doesn't mean that we have to stick to that plan. Light rail is a cost effective option that can blanket a huge area compared to the same price of a SkyTrain. If we can switch our thinking that way, then we can have better access to transportation for a huge amount of people. So, and really that's the key thing that the Greens are trying to push for. I mean, it's something that Surrey and Langley, for instance, have been talking about for a long time, but then the SkyTrain out to UBC gets taken back. And it goes to what Sarah was saying as well, reliable funding. The Congestion Relief Fund is an annual budget, which means that TransLink can account for that money every year, and they can know that they have the $375 million coming in, so they're not going from project to project. And for cars, basically the science says what I agree with. congestion relief just breeds more congestion. Building a wider bridge only gives people more chances to drive, and it just creates more congestion. So we need to shift our focus from providing more services for cars and going towards buses and trains. And the Green Party wants to have an electric bus grid as well to get us off of fossil fuels there and lessen our emissions on our public transportation.
Thank you. Now, you said that you want to go to more cost-effective options than the SkyTrain. TransLink has already said that it wants a SkyTrain, or are you saying that you'll come in and say, look, go at grade rail or something less effective? I
mean, TransLink is able to make their decisions. It's independent from the federal government, but there needs to be more varied approaches to what's going on. TransLink can make the decision of what they think is best for the region, but I mean, when you have cities like Surrey and Langley calling for light rail, they need to take that into account and see the cost-benefit analysis of how many people are being affected by these new lines being put in.
But Langley and Surrey both called for SkyTrain.
Well, the light rail has been going back for, 10 years now.
Yeah.
And it's more cost-effective. I mean, the studies that I remember seeing were showing that it can blanket the entire city compared to the same price as one SkyTrain.
Okay, thank you.
You're listening to Pulse Politics. Today's featured debate is Port Moody Coquitlam. Joining us in studio, the Liberals' Sara Badiei and the Green Party's Bryce Watts. We do have time to spin that wheel of issues yet again. Let's give it a whirl. Our next topic of discussion is healthcare.
Go to Bryce Watts on this. Healthcare, a huge issue here. What do we do about it?
We need to start thinking about preventative healthcare, not dealing with the problems once they've come, but trying to deal with them before they become an issue, especially when it comes to mental health care. Sarah mentioned the homelessness problem in Vancouver, and in Port Moody it's a problem as well. Mm-hmm. It is something that can be dealt with if we have increased funding for mental health issues, because that is a significant chunk of what's causing our opioid crisis, what's causing our homelessness crisis. If we have preventative medicine, basically, we can have a cost-effective way to deal with it before it becomes a problem. It's less money, and it's helping people before they get into trouble.
Okay. Thank you for that. And one of the big issues in mental health care I'm hearing is that we need long-term psychiatric care. Since we shut down Riverview, we're using our jails for long-term psychiatric care. How do you fix that?
Basically, we need the political will. We need people to stop thinking of homelessness as a crime issue, basically. We need to identify that it is a mental health issue and that it is an economic issue, and if we provide resources for those people, it's cost effective, so the conservatives out there can save the money and not have to expend the finances that they're not wanting to spend, basically, and then the progressive people can be helping their fellow citizens. I mean, they are residents of the city with us. They deserve the same resources, the same opportunities that the rest of us have, and we need to put the funding there.
Thank you very much. And Sara Badiei, same to you with healthcare.
Yeah, so actually my husband is a family physician in the Tri-Cities, and every time he comes home, he's struggling to provide quality health care to the patient that he's seeing, but rushing at the same time because the number of people in the waiting room are getting longer and longer. And that situation is getting worse. We've got about 9 million people who are going to reach the age of 65 over the next decade. So Canada has a serious healthcare issue that it needs to address coming forward. The federal government has already, on mental health and on aging, negotiated with the provinces a dedicated $11 billion earmarked for home care services so that people can age at home comfortably and independently and have additional services at home, and to support for mental health. The Liberal governments are also promised a 3% increase in the health transfers. So in the first year alone, that will be about $1 billion. And in the platform, they've said, there's a lot of people who don't have basic access to a family physician. Anytime I tell someone that my husband's a family physician, they say, first thing, is he taking new patients? And that's a real problem. I see that all the time. So we have a goal of trying to make sure everybody has a family physician. And for that, we've said, there's going to be an initial down payment of $6 billion for health care as a starting point to get that going. That's for improved access to family physicians, but also additional mental health support. And the pharmacare program is something that we really need to talk about, because we've already laid a solid foundation to get that program going, because it's so important for people. For example, we've already put in money towards a Canadian drug agency, which is working with the provinces to create a formulary and have more efficient procurement of drugs.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'm glad you brought up the aging population and the absence of being able to get a family physician. A lot of these family physicians are retiring as well. Yeah. How do we get the warm bodies in to do those jobs? They don't seem to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we need to make sure that there are obviously people coming into the programs, people training in the programs, and then people staying in the programs. Mm-hmm. There's been a fair bit of new ways of thinking about providing health care. So, for example, remote health care, telemedicine, being able to see your doctor through an app. There's a lot of different innovative new ways that we can provide healthcare services, and there's no reason why we shouldn't try to consider all the different options that are out there to create efficiencies and better optimizations.
Thank you for that. I wish I had all afternoon to talk to you about some of the hiccups we'd have with telemedicine and stuff like that, but for another show, another time. Thank you very much, both of you.
All right, you are listening to Pulse Politics. The Canadian federal election is coming up on October 21st. Today's featured debate is Port Moody Coquitlam. Joining us in studio, candidates from the Liberals and the Green Party. We were hoping that NDP's Benita Zarrillo and the Conservatives' Nellie Shin could join us in studio. However, they did decline our invitation. Now, before we let you go, we are going to be asking one final question to our candidates. Yes, this one has to do with something that is very relatable to our listeners who love music from the 90s, 2K, and today. And our question is, what was your most favorite song from the 1990s? We're going to start with the Green Party's Bryce Watts and end with the Liberals' Sara Badiei. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
It's a bit embarrassing, but the song that makes me smile the most when I think of the 90s is Sha-La-La-La-La from the Benga Boys.
Nice. Very festive.
And mine's a little bit more serious. It's Angel by Sarah McLachlan. She has such a beautiful voice.
Yes, Canadian from the Lower Mainland as well. So great selection, guys. You have been listening to Pulse Politics. My name is Tara Lopez, joined by Pulse FM's news director, Kevin Diakiw. Now, tomorrow here on the show between 7:30 and 8 o'clock, we do have candidates from Coquitlam and Port Coquitlam joining us in studio, and that is going to be our final Pulse Politics segment. Yeah. We've been doing this every single day for the last 2 weeks. So if you want to take a listen and watch the videos of all the candidates that we had in studio, including today's, you can head to our Facebook page at Pulse 1077. We got to say thank you again to the Liberals' Sara Badiei, the Green Party's Bryce Matthew Watts from Port Moody Coquitlam for joining us today here in the Pulse FM studios, and we wish you the best for the Canadian federal election.
Thank you so much.
October 21st. Appreciate it.
Get informed with the next debate tomorrow with Pulse Mornings between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. #PulsePolitics.